Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan. How's it going, everybody? It's been a while, but the fishing's been great, and we have lots to talk about. Um, Unfortunately, Merrill again was not able to join us. He'll be here. He promises to be here the next time. But we have an exciting episode today. We're going to talk to a local YouTuber and fisherman, Brian McPherson. Definitely, his channel is called Semi Pro Fishing with Brian McPherson. A lot of good content there. But before we get into that, wanted to kind of shout out our sponsors, Knock and Tail Lures. We just finished up the Houston Fishing Show, and they unveiled their new line of baits. Which, if you go back to our previous episode, we talked about his new line of baits there. You're still running the if with our code OLCP 2022, you can get 20% off your next Knock and Tail lure purchase. Also, 4A printing, they have created our custom towels, and they do a bunch of other stuff. Aaron has been doing great stuff with t-shirts and other gear. If you have any custom items that you need made, just talk to him and he'll see what they can do. And of course, DSKA, if you're looking for a kayak fishing forum to go to, DSKA is it. A lot of good folks on there. And just join us and talk fishing. So, yeah, today we're going to talk to Brian McPherson. He's been around for a while, local fisherman in Galveston. And he created a YouTube channel called Semi Pro Fishing with Brian McPherson. Just a good all around guy talking about loves fishing. And we wanted to get him on here to talk about kind of, he's open to basically all kinds of fishing, different species, different tactics. For us, we've only talked about, Merrill and I have only talked about like the big three: trout, reds, and flounder. But for him, he's kind of all over, sheephead, Spanish mackerel, and anything else. So if you guys have any questions for him, feel free to leave it in the chat. And before I continue on, I was talking to Merrill before the show right now, and if you want to enter to win a Shimano SLX bait casting reel and a Shimano hat, um, comment in the chat and also share this stream. We're live right now, and share the stream, and you'll be entered. Just try to get as many people onto here as possible. Spread the word about hopefully that we give good info, and you'll be entered to win a Shimano SLX and a Shimano hat, courtesy of Merrill. So yeah, so let's just hop right into it and get Brian on the phone here. How's it going, Brian?
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, so I hear that I actually just wanted before the show we were talking, and you recently went fishing. How'd that go?
Yeah, I hit the jetty yesterday. After I went to a job interview, I went ahead and hit the jetty with my buddy Andy and a couple of his coworkers. And yeah, we got out there and the water was beautiful, man. It was really green. Like I was surprised because this past Sunday I went and waited Christmas, and I caught a couple trout while waiting Christmas, and the wind picked up. And I ended up going back to the vehicle to get an extra battery that I didn't even need. So when I came back, the wind was kind of blowing strong, and I couldn't locate the bait anymore. So therefore, I couldn't really find the trout anymore. So we hit the jetty, and man, it was just southeast wind was blowing strong, and it had the surf side jetty, like the beach side. It was all like big waves, water was dirty, and then on the channel side, you couldn't even throw a cord because it was blowing down. So it was Jurassic Strange. The water was green. It was beautiful. Got there probably around like 4:30. By the time I got there, we got to the end. A couple of dudes had already caught some jacks. There were schools of jacks starting to show up. Two were already caught. So we started getting into the sheephead. Got a quart of live shrimp. We were using corks with. I usually generally use like a 4-foot leader sometimes. 4 to 5 foot leader, but for some reason there was a little bit bigger waves today or yesterday on that day, so we were using 6-foot leaders. And I cast out. Generally, I try to keep it close to the rocks, but not too close. But for some reason, I was casting out a little further, and I was just catching them. And generally, with sheephead, sometimes I'll use a cork on a jetty, but if I'm on a boat, like I'll use Carolina rig and just drop it down. Or sometimes I feel like if I'm not having too much success with the Carolina rig, I'll just use like a free line, but I'll put a couple extra split shots on there. But yesterday, I caught a handful of shorts. my buddies, they all caught keepers, but I caught a bunch of shorts. But it's just about catching fish for me, man. I just love being out in the water. I love setting the hook, all that stuff. But yeah, there was, like I said, there was two jacks I seen that they'd already caught before I got there, and then some lady hooked up while we were out there, and but it eventually got off, so she didn't land that fish. But yeah, man, the jetties are looking nice. Like I'm ready to go back. The next couple weeks, I know the Spanish mackerel should be showing up soon. I know this time, a couple years back, I was catching Spanish mackerel on 61st Street Pier. So I'm definitely ready for the warmer weather. I'm ready for the wind to die down. Man,
Yes.
I can't stand this wind lately, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, you actually gave a lot of good info there for those who were kind of joining us late. But there's a lot to unpack. Actually, let's first start with sheephead. So,
Okay.
like I mentioned earlier in the show, we kind of Merrill and I really talk about like the big three here: trout, reds, and flounder. We
Yeah.
don't really talk about Spanish mackerel and sheephead.
Mhm.
Um, for sheephead, my earliest memory, not earliest memory, but one of my better trips when I started really targeting them.
Mhm.
I just started college and I had more time to fish. My college schedule was based upon my fishing schedule. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and it was one of those days where it was super super cold. I think it was December, um, and they don't allow this anymore. But back then, I could just go on to Texas A&M Galveston
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
fish around there. And
Mhm.
man, the you get a live shrimp on a Carolina rig, and if you just left it there, the sheephead
Yeah.
would just pop up.
Pick
Uh,
it
uh,
up.
uh,
Yeah.
yep. And unfortunately now they kick you out because it's private property. But
Yeah.
um, but I remember it was just literally like I couldn't sit outside. Like I left my little lawn chair I set out, just left it out there, went to the car and just like looked at my rod tip to see if it was bouncing or anything. And it
Yeah.
bounced. I went out, set the hook, got my fish, and
Yeah.
then just reset it and just went back to the car and just sat there. Um, but so I guess for you, in your experience, what if there was a season for sheephead? What would it be?
Well, I know right now is like it's their spawning season. So right now they're in. I don't want to say herds, but they're in herds of sheep. Like you're catching them in the masses. Like a couple weeks back, like I said, my buddy Andy took me to. I think it was. I don't know if it was the north or the south jetty. I know it was the jetty in Galveston, and I know the seawall was to our back. And we were on the other side of it at first using corks, but then we moved to the other side and to let us have some break from the wind,
Mhm.
and we were using the spot lock with a trolling motor. And normally I like to use cork, and then Andy started catching them off the bottom, so I tied on a Carolina rig. And usually I like using a Carolina rig, but for some reason when I was dropping it down, I felt like I was had more contact with the weight than I did with my bait. So that's why I changed it up to I just put on I used a free line shrimp like I normally do. I use a uni to uni knot to tie my fluorocarbon to my braid, and then I'll use a size 10 treble hook. Um, and all I did after that was I added a couple big split shots, and I feel like I had more contact with my bait. And like you said, I would just kind of cast it out, and I'd let it hit the bottom. I would let it fall, free fall until I felt it hit the bottom, or my spool stopped moving. You know what I'm saying? Letting that line,
Yeah.
and I just click it, and I would just kind of put enough tension on it to keep that weight off the ground, off the bottom, and then eventually you feel the sheephead like pinfish will just be like a nicking. It'll be like,
Yeah.
but a sheephead it'll grab it, punch it a few times, and then I just wait for the line to start moving. When I feel them pulling the line, I put my rod tip down, I reel in my slack, and then set the hook on. So I mean, I love catching sheephead. I know people love trout. I love trout. Don't get me wrong. Trout's one of my favorite. I hunt trout all the time. Flounder too. I love the thump. Redfish. I've caught a lot of reds. You know what I'm saying in my time, but I'm more of a trout and flounder guy. But something about the way sheephead fight when you hook that sheephead, it's diving, man. It's trying to break you off.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's why I enjoy catching them. A lot of people say, "Oh, they were considered trash fish," but sheephead actually have some really flaky white meat. Yeah, they have a lot of bones, not really a lot of little bones, but like when you're filleting them, trying to cut through
Yeah.
like the rib cage. I just cut around it, man. I go down the back, you know what I'm saying, down its back, and when I get to the rib cage, I'll just cut around it, really. So, but like I said, I'll use Carolina rigs some most times, but off the boat, I don't know. I just like the free line. And sometimes when I'm at the jetty and there's not a lot of wind and the water's more the clarity of the water is better and I can actually see the sheephead, I'll tend to free line a shrimp.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I'll cast past that the sheephead that I see or the whatever rock they're holding on. I'll cast past that rock and then I'll eventually like reel my shrimp in just to where it's a foot or two away from that rock. And then sometimes I like to let my rod tip sink and let it sink down because sheephead are when they see you, if they see you, they're gonna swim away. Like
Yeah.
they're pressured. Now sometimes they got so much going on that they won't even notice you. But it's not such a windy day and the water's real clear
Hmm.
and you can see them, trust me, if they see you, they're gonna swim away.
Oh yeah. It's all about that natural presentation,
Yeah.
and especially like you said, there's no wind. Um, it's about I think there's a couple of things that we would have to just unpack there as well. You need a rod and reel setup that you can actually toss that just
Yeah.
weightless, the free lining,
Mhm.
or a couple split shots of tossing your bait at
Yeah.
accurately, getting it past the rock and bring it down. Um, so, and what size hook did you say there that you like to use?
I like to use a size 10 treble hook. But the other day when I was out with my buddy Andy, they were using J hooks, and I tend to use size treble 10 treble, and sometimes they'll bite it down and like they'll flatten one of the hooks, which I don't really mind. I still kind of catch them. But I've seen lately, yesterday they were catching them. I was using a whole shrimp. So when I use my size 10 treble, I'll hook it behind the horn and let that shrimp swim freely. And for the most part, if it's a bigger sheephead, it'll tend to just eat that shrimp, like, and it'll just eat that hook. You get them. But if it's like a smaller sheephead, most of the time they'll bite the tail and then they'll leave you with just the head and part of the body. But from my experience yesterday, Andy and his buddies, they were catching quite a bit more than me. So I was like, man, what are y'all doing, man? It's time for me to take this treble off. And I put a J hook on and we were taking the live shrimp and we were ripping it in half. And then you would just take the hook and you would stick the barb up the meat into the head, and then also through the tail, whichever way. But I started catching more sheephead with the J hook and using half a shrimp out there for some. So I guess using that whole shrimp. Sometimes they're sheephead are different. Sometimes they're finicky and they'll take nibbles of it. They'll take bite little
Yeah.
pieces of the shrimp. And then there's just sometimes where they'll eat it. They'll eat the whole shrimp and just swim off. Like I've also caught sheephead flounder fishing. One time I was in Baytown, Trinity Bay, and I was using a tandem rig for flounder, and I caught two sheephead, big sheephead too. So I've caught them on gulp before, but yeah, man, size 10 treble is what my go-to. And usually if I'm fishing jetties or if I'm fishing structure or rock, I like to use 20-pound fluorocarbon. Um, I tend to use 12-pound whenever I'm waiting for trout or something like that. But when I'm fishing structure and jetties or pylons for sheephead, I like to use 20-pound fluorocarbon. And I connect it to my braid with a uni to uni knot when I'm freelining, basically a clinch knot. And yeah, man, if that's not working, I'll throw the cork on. And another thing, like you said, with the rod and reel setup, I like to use a medium light action rod. Basically, I just use my trout rod with a 50E and a 20-pound braid, 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. But I will say, the corks I like to use while sheephead fishing they're called Outcast, and they're like the cone corks, but they have a lead weight at the bottom, and then they
Okay.
have the barrel swivel on top. So you tie your leader and your main line to that barrel swivel. And that cork that weight on the bottom of that cork will allow you to cast it like way further out. Now, on the jetties, a lot of people use 8 to 9 foot rods out there, so you can cast much further. But while fishing for sheephead, I tend to stay close to the rocks. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
They're up against where all the food is anyway. So
yeah.
When I first really got into sheephead fishing, um, out of a kayak,
Mhm.
um, the setup that we used, because we would go up to in the ship channel, we'd go up to the underneath those piers.
Yeah.
Um, but the problem was that you were literally dropping right down next to the piling.
Mhm.
But you would need a medium to medium heavy rod.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, we're using like 40-pound fluoro,
Yeah.
that we would change out like every 4 or 5 fish, because after the fourth or fifth fish, it was like freezing heck, because
Yeah,
they know
they know,
they
yeah,
something's not right. They go straight to the piling, and you
trying
could
to pick
feel it
you up.
rubbing.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, if you ever have that experience to do that, for our listeners to kind of do, like just find a bunch of pier pilings and
Mhm.
get some live shrimp, Carolina rig it, or just even just put it on a jig head, drop
Mhm.
a shrimp straight down.
Yeah.
um, it's a heck of a lot of fun, because you're not only fighting the fish, you're kind of fighting the water and the currents, and there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
The close combat fishing, it's not for everybody, but it's a lot of fun. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. I've fished with kayaks. It's definitely a lot of fun. I've been thinking about getting another one. Honestly, I'm debating on if I should get a kayak or if I should just keep saving and get myself a boat, which I really, really want to do. But another thing I wanted to mention about sheephead is like if you can't afford to get live shrimp, people catch sheephead on dead shrimp. And another little one of my YouTube secrets that I gave back in the day, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I did, was if you don't have sheep, what I used to call sheephead candy was hermit crab. Like
oh yeah.
whenever we ran out of shrimp, we would go find some hermit crabs down at SeaWorld Park and take a rock and just smash them and put them on that hook. Something about that hermit crab, man. When they smell it, I'll drop it down and they'll just follow it straight down, and you feel them eat it. And like I said, when that line starts to move, you set the hook on them. But fishing at Seawolf, I will say that, like I said before, like if a sheephead sees you, it's going to swim away. So when I'm fishing for sheephead at Seawolf, I feel like I'm stalking them, like I'm actually hunting them, because like I'll tend to try to like see them from a couple pylons away and sneak up on them. But yeah, uh, hermit crab is definitely sheephead candy. So if you ain't got no shrimp, I would look for some hermit crab.
Yeah. Basically, any crustacean, they like all that stuff. So,
Yeah,
um, if regular blue crabs will work, but if that's a really expensive bait if if you go buy it.
like
Uh,
I've heard fiddle crab works real good, but I
yeah,
mean I don't tend to find any of those around here. Like I've seen them down south near Padre, but I don't see them too much wherever I go fishing. So
yeah. I actually have a question from one of our listeners. Melinda's asking, "Can you catch them on a lure?" You said you caught them on gulp. I've caught them uh, a handful of times when I was sight casting. We were doing for redfish, really super shallow water. Sometimes they're in those marshy areas, and if you put like a bugs lure,
mhm.
or whatever soft plastic you're throwing, they'll most of the time eat it. Shrimp imitations, they love those, obviously. So they're just they're just it's uncommon to catch them on artificial.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've seen people catch them on voodoo. Like
yeah,
I've seen it done. But I don't know, man. Maybe if you put some Procure on there, yeah, I think you'd have a better chance with the voodoo shrimp. But like I said, whenever I caught them on the gulp, I was literally fishing for flounder, and I was fishing a little jetty, out there by channels, and I don't know. I was just thinking I was gonna get a flounder, and I caught a big sheephead. It was crazy.
yep. So yeah. So and of course the other species that you're talking about is Spanish mackerel. That's something that I've caught. They're really fun to catch. They're more of a like I'm really upset when I hook one,
Yeah,
mainly because I'm fishing for trout,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I'll get a few good runs from it, and then all of a sudden nothing because they just cut you off. So what's your game plan for Spanish mackerel as kind of the season?
Well, when I'm targeting Spanish mackerel, I try to use a heavier leader, maybe like a 30-pound fluoro. Sometimes I'll even I'll use a steel leader, a wire leader. But I tend to catch more Spanish mackerel when I use the fluorocarbon. Um, Yeah, sometimes like I'll use 30, sometimes 30-pound floral, and a lot of times I'll just stick with the 20, man. And I just go with I just when you hook them, I get them good in the mouth. Sometimes you hook them down, and yes, you get broken off quite a bit, but I mean, if they're thick and they're running, you'll catch 3 or 4, and you might lose 2, But I just tend to keep I tie a long leader, and
Yeah.
if they break me off, I have plenty of hooks. I always have enough terminal tackle because when you're fishing, you're gonna, that's my main thing. Fishing for flounder, I want to have more jig heads. It's just part of the game. You win some, you lose some, but that's just the thrill of it. I like using when I go fishing for Spanish mackerel. I like using a like a 6 foot medium light or ultra light with a spinning reel. Spinning combo. I'm more of in it for the fun than to catching a limit of them. But I see people like I said, they fish the jetties. They'll use a bigger spinning setup, and they'll
Yeah.
throw like a spoon, and they'll catch them with spoons. But they use I've seen people not just use fluorocarbon, but they'll use the monofilament. A lot of people like to use just a monofilament, but use a heavier like a 30, 40 pound. I know that they've been using that too to catch jacks too. Buddy of mine tied on a 60 pound. But yeah, when I'm targeting Spanish mackerel, I tend to use live shrimp. Like you said, honestly, I'll be trying to target trout, and then I'll just start catching Spanish mackerel. And and when I start catching them on the shrimp, another thing as if they're hitting and you're catching them and they're breaking you off, then I'll tend to use the wire leader, and I'll start throwing either a spoon or I'll throw a jerk bait, and you tend to catch them a lot like that too. So, but when they're just busting on top,
Yeah.
good old top waters, that'll work. But make sure you have like a wire leader because if you just have on straight braid, it's gonna get cut through for sure.
Yeah. Well, actually my best time I ever did with Spanish mackerel, we were fishing in Texas City, um, and we were just drifting in the kayak, and it was we were probably in about 15 foot of water. Like we're
Mhm.
pretty much near the middle of the ship channel,
Yeah,
um, and or at least getting towards where the ship channel, because it's like 20-30 foot right in the middle of the ship channel, and it was sloping off. And we were there because we found there's like this little shell kind of patch, and we were actually catching trout, like, using a corky,
mhm.
letting it sink. We were just drifting really slow, casting it out there, and it would sink. Probably got it around like 7 foot, and we would just work the corky back, and we are catching these trout.
Yeah,
Um, and then we kept doing our drift, and we kept pulling up these trout. And all of a sudden, it was just a bunch of Spanish mackerel just came up,
yeah.
and we started losing all of our corkies.
Ooh,
And then so we were like, we lost. I think each my buddy and I, we lost like 2 or 3 each, and we're like, okay, this is too expensive now. Broke
right.
college kids, we can't afford this. So we put on rattle traps,
Uh-huh.
and we started hooking up with those, and we did it. We caught like maybe one or two, and then they just eat the rattle trap.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and I remember we went through 2 or 3 corkies, a couple rattle traps, and we did the spoon thing. Lost a couple spoons,
yeah,
and the fish were still biting, and they wouldn't even touch soft plastic. They wouldn't touch soft plastic.
yeah.
They just wanted that shiny whatever
Mm.
and that large profile. And at that point, we gave up because like both of us were like $100 in the hole at that point
Yeah,
from just lost tackle.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, whenever they go crazy, it can be a lot of fun. But also, I've also run into um, where if you had a wire leader on, they wouldn't touch it.
yeah. Sometimes that's why, like I say, when I use lures, whenever they're hitting the shrimp and they stop hitting the shrimp, I'll start throwing a jerk bait, but I'll use the wire, and I'll tend to get bites like that. But like I said, I try to go heavier floral, and like I said, you'll lose some, and you'll catch 3 or 4, and you might lose 2. It's just part of the game. Like if you enjoy catching them, and I love catching them. They, like I said, on ultralight spinning combo, they put up a great fight. You know what I'm saying? And there's a beautiful fish. It's just fun to catch for me. That's why I like targeting them. And like you said, most of the time I'm really trying to catch trout, and then I'll just start catching Spanish mackerel. But I know once that water starts turning green, it's oof. And the surf, like that's what I'm waiting for. I'm like, it's it should have been already happening, and it's starting to like. I tend to watch a lot of on Instagram. I'll follow 61st Street Pier's Instagram page, and when I see people catching pompano out there, I know that the trout are starting to show up. Probably a month ago, I want to say a month ago, I seen people catching pompano on 61st Street Pier on their page and were posting it. So I showed up and I'm like, well, I'm gonna get a quarter shrimp. Me and my girlfriend, we went and I showed up and I was on the pier and I was like, well, maybe I'll catch a couple sheephead. And then some guys were down on the rocks and they were started flipping up trout. I'm like, are you kidding me? Trout right now, like in the surf right now. So I ran down there. I said, hey, I told my girl, I said, hey, watch a few of the rods right here because I had a few rods down soaking. And I was like, watch these rods. I'm gonna go down there real quick. Man, I watched this guy catch a whole limit of trout, and I'm standing right next to him and we were taking turns. He would cast up the rocks and let the current drift his shrimp back down, and I would cast mine and let my shrimp drip down, and he would cast behind me, and he was just nailing them, dude. And I was just like, it was a humbling day for me. Like I got footage. I recorded each of the trout I caught, or he caught, whatever I got. Like, and one of them was like a 24, and like I even pulled, like he had it hung on the rock, so I went down there and grabbed it for him. He's like, no, don't go down there. Don't, it's not worth it. And I was like, don't worry, bro, I got it. And I got all this footage. I could have made a whole video of him just catching a limit. I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do that. but man, it was humbling. But I know that when I tend to watch Instagram, and I like people. I see people catching certain fish. I know that the water's starting to turn. Like when they catching pompano, I know that the trout will be there. And I spoke to him, and I spoke to an older gentleman, and the older gentleman told me that the day before they were catching limits, and they were catching over 20s, 23s, 24s. One dude said he lost one that might have been 30, and the older man told me that, and I was like, oh, really, really? And then when I started talking to the younger guy who I was catching trout next to me, he's like, yeah, some old man lost one. It had to have been 30 yesterday. He lost one. It was so big. Now, here's the thing. These guys are locals down there in the island. And, you know, they back in the day, it was all about stringers and posting fish pics and having the most fish. That's what it was, that's what it's about, It's about, how many you could catch and who could catch the biggest. And nowadays, it's like no one wants to say anything about what they're catching. Like they were like, yeah, the past 3 days we've been killing them. I'm like, I haven't seen any of these. I didn't see anybody posting nothing. I just saw the pompano on 61st, so I thought I'd come down. But yeah, man, it's I know the surf's gonna turn on pretty soon. It's gonna about to be
Yeah.
that time of year, man.
So with the surf, kind of for those for our listeners who aren't really aware of, what conditions are you looking for, and how do you know when obviously you go fishing whenever you can go fishing because it's a very limited amount of time, but how do you know when it's going to be you're going to go to surf and fish it? It's going to be good.
Well, I know, I heard that the north wind blows the surf flat supposedly, and I've also heard that a southeast or an east wind blows in the green water. I'm not particularly too sure about all that stuff, but I know that if I'm ever gonna go out to Galveston and fish like the seawall and the surf, I tend to go to 61st Street Pier Cam, and I give it a look before I even go down there. You can go on their website, and there's a live cam that gives you a live feed of how the water looks. And I tend to just before I make the decision, I check the weather. I see what the wind's like. If it's 10 to 12, it's not a bad thing. If it's 16, 17, it might be tough out there. And then I'll check the cameras and make sure that it's, if there's big waves or big swells, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I've caught trout, out there when there's swells, but I definitely would check the 61st Street Pier live feed cam and make sure that the water isn't dirty. You can catch drum out there when the water's, chocolate milk and turned up. I've seen a lot of people catching drum out there right now, black drum. And for them, you just Carolina rig, some dead shrimp. I've heard pompano, you can catch them on dead shrimp as well. But man, I just, like you said, whenever I can go fishing, because I work Monday through Friday, sometimes on Saturdays. So that one day a week that I get to go, I'm going, whether it's
Yeah.
32 degrees outside or, blowing 17-mile-an-hour wind. I get out there, and I tend to catch fish on days that no one would ever go out. Like those are sometimes I'm like, what am I doing out here? And then I'll catch a limit of trout, all almost pushing 20, or just I've had really good days on days you wouldn't even expect to catch fish.
Yeah. Yeah. So in my experience, you definitely want to look for either a southeast wind or a north wind. Um, Generally, overall, if you have low winds,
Hmm.
it's going to be flat.
Yeah,
But again, like you always want to check with a 61st Street Pier Cam.
yeah.
If you want to pay for the subscription, uh, Saltwater Recon, they have
Recon,
they have a bunch of cams out there.
yeah.
We're not sponsored by them, but they have a bunch of really good cams that you could that are all around Galveston, and you can get a good idea of what the water's like.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so that's what I'm generally looking for. Um, so and I guess again, wanted to remind everybody that this is our live stream. You can join us at facebook.com/one last cast podcast. And for those of you listening right now, if you want to enter to win a Shimano SLX and a Shimano hat, just comment on here and share the stream out. Just so comment and share, and you'll be entered to win. Courtesy of Merriel, who was unfortunately unable to join us today. We're talking with Brian McPherson. He's a local fisherman, and also he has the YouTube channel Semi Pro Fishing with Brian McPherson. And actually, speaking of that, so uh, kind of walk me through uh, your your first YouTube video and kind of like what lessons did you learn as you progressed to what you are now?
Okay. Well, the whole YouTube channel started with my ex-wife. I would always come home and I would tell her about, hey, you should have seen this bass. I was fishing on the bayou, and you should have seen I hooked this bass and it jumped out the water. And eventually, she's like, you should get a GoPro, record. And I was like, nah. At the time, I was like, no, I could never spend that kind of money on myself, with our child and everything. I was like, no, I'm not going to spend $500 on a camera. Because at the time, GoPros were like, the Hero 3 was like, the black edition was like $499. I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way I'm going to spend $500 on myself. I would. Not when we just had a newborn and stuff like that. And she actually went and got it for me one day as a gift. And I started recording. I just started bass fishing at bayous around my neighborhood. I've always saltwater fished with my dad when I was younger, but with my father, we always just got some shrimp and threw a Carolina rig. We never really targeted trout or red. Like we just went after whatever we caught. If we caught speckled trout or reds, it was that was a good day. But I started off bass fishing. I met a few people, and honestly, a buddy of mine from where I worked at the time, he was part of GSF, like the original Galveston saltwater fishing page when it was like maybe 500 people. He was part of it, and then he's like, "Hey man, you should join this thing." And he's like, "They're catching flounder, they're using gulp." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've caught flounder before in the past." So like, we ended up getting some gulp and headed down to Seawolf and using jig heads and like I went out and bought a what is it, the Revo,
Yeah.
the saltwater one. I
Yeah.
used to have the Revo saltwater, and I bought I ended up getting a blue rod that matched it. And man, I just started catching flounder and making flounder videos, and surprisingly, a lot of people were watching them. And I met people while I was at Seawolf. And that was one of my first when I used to go fishing with my dad at Seawolf when I was younger, when they had a pavilion and they sold hamburgers. I remember being able to go into the pavilion before all the hurricane and all that stuff. And you know, like I just started fishing there, and I'd catch flounder, and I learned to catch trout on the channel side with a cork. And I just met people. I met my friends Andy Din. I met buddy Gummy Lamb and Tam Vu. I met all these dudes out there, and just fishing with them. Like, hey man, we should fish this weekend. Yeah, we would get together, and man, they taught me. We used to go at nighttime and catch sheephead at nighttime, and that was really fun. Seeing them in the light, and just seeing their silhouette and watching them follow your shrimp down, stuff like that. But yeah, started slowly progressing, man. Just fishing with different people, having open mind. Like a lot of people, a lot of times I'll fish with somebody new, or I'll fish with a group of people, and like I'll be catching fish, and it's like, hey man, you should try this, and then they don't want, they're hesitant to do it, because I guess some people feel like, oh well, if I catch a fish, it's only because he showed me, you know. But I know that if I'm fishing with somebody and I'm not catching them, and I see them catching a certain way, I'm like, hey man, what are you doing? Is there any way you can teach, show me what you're doing? That way I can catch more. And eventually, uh, I just kept posting my videos. Like another thing is like with the whole YouTube thing and growing your channel, one of the biggest things I could say and give advice for someone who wants to start a YouTube channel is you got to pump your videos, man. Like any social media outlet, Instagram, Facebook, your Snapchat, TikTok these days is big. You got to push your content. Like I remember when I first started my YouTube channel, man, I used to make a video and I would send it to every one of my friends on my Facebook page. Like all my friends on Facebook, I would shoot them all a link, like, just watch my video, man. Give me a view, like help get my views up. And at first, I used to make bass fishing videos. And before the whole like Guggen squad took over like the fishing industry, I actually had a lot of subscribers, and I got 500,000 views on, a lot of 100,000 views like videos on bass fishing. And but once there's a guy called One Rod One Reel, and we both had 13,000 subscribers at the same time. And I remember he did a mystery tackle box video, and the video he made, he didn't do it for them, he just did it just to do it. And they used his content. He blew up, man. And he ended up meeting a few of those dudes, and they made the little Guggen squad, and they just blew up together. um, I, I haven't had that type of success or luck yet. I've slowly climbed the ladder, and I'm still slowly climbing. But I will say that it's more just have a good time doing what you're doing, and be yourself. And if you're just yourself and you have a good time, that's what people like to watch most of the time.
Yeah.
And I will say, with the negativity, you'll get negativity sometimes. You'll get it a lot. I just tended to ignore it. Back in the day when I was younger, I used to argue with people in the comment section, and now that I'm older, it's just like a waste of time. Someone's trying to get under my skin. Sometimes, like, some people be like, "Man, that dude can't fish," or "That dude don't know." You know what? I just agree with them. I'm just like, "Yeah, you're right," because I'm not gonna waste my time anymore being negative with people. I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, keep fishing. Uh, Nowadays, like back in the day, I never really liked to do collaboration videos, but now when people reach out to me, I'm gonna try to make a better attempt at fishing with more people, expanding my horizons, being open minded. That way, I can grow, So, but yeah, I definitely, um, I just like making videos, man. It's more of a hobby now. Like it's never really made me a lot of money. I've never done it for the money. The money that I have made, it's been okay, but it's not about that for me. It's about, honestly, I just like to record my videos, like when I go fishing on my trips. That way, years from now, I can look back, like, see all the fish I've caught and the times I had with my friends. So, but yeah, YouTube is definitely, it's at certain times I picked up a lot of sponsors when I first started a while back. I have a lot of more sponsors than I do now, and I just felt like sponsorships kind of turned it into a job. Like they kept wanting more and more and more, and I don't know, like it's like some of the people, and then like at one point I had mystery tackle box paying me like a couple, like $500, like for a couple videos, and then they just wanted to shoot me down to $100 a video. And I was like, man, it's not. And they wanted me to do, like I said, it kind of made it like a job. So I try to stay away from all the sponsors and the pro staff stuff. I just like to fish, and share my passion for fishing, and yeah, share information. That's basically what I do it for now these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of this platform right here. It's a creative outlet for Merriel and I.
Yeah.
Definitely to share information for people who want to get into fishing, and especially kayak fishing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's I understand the whole thing where it becomes a job. I work in marketing,
Mhm.
so we've worked with social media influencers, paid for campaigns and stuff like that for professionally for my job and what we do. And it there are people who are really good at it, who can really do it, and that they never think of it as a job. It's but
Yeah.
you also meet people who are like, it's just, you can tell it kind of like suck doing what they do now. It sucked their soul out of their body, and they're just kind of going along with it because it pays the bills, but
Yeah.
there's no passion in what they do. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, but it is difficult because you have to. It's another grind that you have to do to make yourself successful. And of course, as with anything, some people get lucky.
Yes.
But for all the people who are lucky at it, there's tens of other people who they put in the time and they grind, and they get big doing that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. Like I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, man. Hopefully it'll take off eventually, you know. But when I meet the people who do support my page and my channel, they watch my videos, they just tell me, hey man, we love your content. Just keep doing what you're doing.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. I got a question from one of the audience, like, what GoPro do you currently use, and or which one have you liked overall?
Right now I have the 8. I have the GoPro 8 Black, Hero Black. I tend to stay with the black, which is a higher megapixel. I got a couple buddies who have the 9, has a front facing screen now too. And I just figured with the 8 right now, all I'm using is 1080p, so it works for me. A lot of my buddies have told me, hey man, you need to go 4K. And just right now, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't have no Patreon account. I don't have none of that type of stuff. I don't make a bunch of money off YouTube. You know, the money I do make, it helps with a little bit. You know, it pays my phone bill, it'll pay my car insurance. You know what I'm saying? It pays for some fishing trips, but I'm not making the money like some of these guys out there. Like
Yeah,
I'm not a retired guy who can just go fishing every day. And when I was younger, I took some time off. I took probably half a year off, and I was pumping out videos, and I was making, you know, 6, 7, 800 bucks a month from it. But you know, it's you're having to put out a lot of content. Right now, I just can't do that. And
yeah,
what I'm doing now is working right now. So, you know, when I get to the point, like I said, I just went to a job interview. I'm going to start making a lot more money. So I might be having a boat soon, and I'll be able to do 4K and all that type of stuff. But as of right now, like I'm a fisherman on a budget. I use the Hero 8. In the past, I used the Hero 3 Plus. I used that for a long time. And I didn't upgrade till probably a couple years ago. So I know that the 8 should last me a year or two. And it does 1080p well, the 4K. And I have a lot of people ask me, "Hey man, what camera do you use?" Because they see the quality of my video, I guess. And I will say it has something to do with the editing software I use. There's a feature on there that if I turn it, I don't know exactly what it is. If I turn it on or off, it'll brighten it a little more, or it'll leave it regular. And I tend to leave that feature on because it just makes everything look so much better. And I use Sony Vegas Pro when I do my editing, so maybe that helps some people. And if they really, really want to know exactly what I'm doing, they can just contact me through email or my Instagram, or even in my comment section of my YouTube channel, and I'll get back to them for sure.
awesome, awesome. Um, and Also, for 4K, not everybody right now has the ability to watch in 4K, so it's kind
Yeah,
of a wasted thing, anyways.
yeah. That's
So,
what I was thinking too. But
but and also the whole thing with, like, even in the film industry, they actually, even though they film on these really expensive cameras, they basically decrease the quality
mhm,
because it looks more realistic for people.
yeah,
Because we don't when it looks too realistic, it does. It's all these editing things, but there was a whole thing about it where they purposely decrease the quality of the video so it looks more realistic
yeah,
to the viewers, anyways. So
yeah,
obviously, don't go shooting 144p or something like that because
yeah,
nobody can see that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but I got another question. I think you kind of answered this already from Anthony.
Yeah.
Do you get hate for sharing spots or give videos to certain spots? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Man, I get a lot of hate for sharing spots. Here's the thing. Um, the spots that I film at, I tend to not when I go fishing with people and they ask me, "Hey man, can you please not can you edit this part out or can you leave this out or can you leave the part where us going to the spot out?" I'm like, "Sure." Now, spots that I fish generally, I don't tend to put the name out there. I'll put like if I'm in Trinity Bay, I'll put Trinity Bay, you know. If I'm fishing in Galveston, I'll put Galveston. If I'm fishing Surfside or somewhere, like I'll put like Surfside, like if I'm fishing in Christmas or something. But I never dropped an exact location, but I'm not gonna take out landmarks. Um, if you want to use Google Maps and you want to see something in the back of my video and you want to spend hours trying to find it and you find it that way, then good for you. I'm not gonna stop you from that. You know what I'm saying? But I don't drop pins. Like I've had people reach out to me, "Hey man, you think you can help me out? I'm trying to take my kid fishing." And it's the hardest thing in the world to tell that person, "Hey man, you know, a buddy of mine showed me this spot and they asked me not to give it away, you know, like, and I get a lot of people that dislike me for that. Um, sometimes I used to post a video and I'd get 25 dislikes for like, as soon as I posted a video, I would just get 25 dislikes and I would just be like, man, what's with these people? Why, if they dislike me so much, why don't they just unfollow me? Why they stay subscribed? I mean, is it just to dislike my stuff like that? I don't know, man. A lot of people they don't like me. You either love me or you hate me. I honestly, the way I feel about it is, once you get to know me, you probably won't. I won't have you won't have a reason to hate me. Like I just like having a good time. I like to fish. I'm respectful. I give respect. You know what I'm saying? But I also I want it back. You know, I tend, you know, I treat people like I want to be treated. If you ask me not to share a spot with somebody or anybody, you just say, "Hey man, can you just leave the spot out?" Then yeah, man, I will. If anybody asks me, I won't tell them. I'll just tell them like I'm saying y'all. I'll be like, "Hey man, my buddy asked me not to share this spot, so I mean, if you ask me to do the same thing, I'll do it for you." And when people, people sometimes they'll be like, "Yeah, you're right. I appreciate it anyway." And then sometimes you'll just get people that hate you. And that's just one thing that I've learned throughout the years is that you're not going to be able to make everyone happy. I used to try. I used to, I'm just like everybody else. I want to be liked by everybody. I want everybody to tell, "Hey, what's up, man?" But not everybody's going to like you, and I'm okay with that. The people that I have around me are good people. Um, if I'm fishing and I see a kid walking by, I try to, if that kid wants to fish, I try to help that kid fish. I've been catching trout before and had a kid and his grandma, what I'm saying, roll up on me while I'm on 61st jetty. I'm catching trout and the kid's like, "Can I try?" And I hook a trout and I let him reel it in, man. It was one of the most awesome experiences. I know his grandma, we took photos and stuff. He's like, "Oh my God." He caught a 17-inch speckled trout. And I just held the rod and let him reel it, and it's just stuff like that, man. It's like the people who don't like me, they don't even know me, man, honestly. And that's what I feel like. The ones who have something bad to say about me, they probably don't even know me. So, but yeah, it's just there's hate everywhere you go. And
Yeah,
I've just
it,
blocked it out these days.
it's always out there. And of course, like, what's the saying? If you do something worthwhile, if somebody's hating on you, then you've done something good or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. If they ain't hating on you, ain't doing your job right.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. And before we leave this, to attest to your love, I got a comment from Steven here. Brian's a class act underwater. I can attest to that. So
Appreciate that, Steve.
you definitely have your people who know you,
Yeah.
and can attest to it. Well, um, I think that kind of ends. We're going to end it here for today. Brian, thanks again for joining us.
No
Again,
problem.
this has been the One Last Cast podcast. You can join us live. We try to go live every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can find us at facebook.com/One One Last Cast podcast. We've had Brian here. He's a local fisherman in Galveston. His YouTube channel is Semi Pro Fishing with Brian McPherson. Look him up on YouTube. Watch his content. You like it, subscribe. If you don't subscribe. um, and I guess before we head off, Brian, any last parting pieces of wisdom that you wanted to give before we head out of here?
I just want to say thanks for having me on. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me, if you need any information or need help with any type of fishing tips, I have an Instagram. It's MC Brian Scott. You can hit me up on a comment section. I believe I have my email address in on my YouTube channel information. And yeah, I just hope everybody enjoys the videos. And if you have any ideas for me, let me know, man. And like I said, try to go out there and have best luck, y'all.
Yeah. And Brian, we'll go fishing soon someday. So
Oh, for sure, man. We got to, for sure.
yeah. So yeah, this has been a One Last Cast podcast. For those of you who've been wanting to potentially win the Shimano SLX and the Shimano hat, and of course, we're also throwing in our custom towel that a 4A printing does. I'm gonna just comment and share the stream right here. I'm gonna leave it open. It's gonna be here forever, but I'm gonna start like choosing somebody probably at the end of this week on Saturday. So just comment, share, and we'll choose somebody at the end of the week. So thanks again for watching. Thanks again, Brian, and y'all guys have a good day.
Take it easy, y'all.